History is full of rich connections to God and the great outdoors He created for us. I'm on a mission to fellowship with other fathers as we introduce our sons and daughters to the beauty and bounty of the world where we are blessed to walk with our Heavenly Father in His garden. My name is Jacob Whitley, and this is Fathers and the Great Outdoors.
I crushed him. I don't know, I could have hit hard. I was aiming a little bit higher than I wanted to because he was perfect broadside. I just put that second pin right in the middle. Up that long, it just went.
Welcome to Fathers in the Great Outdoors. If you want to continue to support this content, you can check out our website, greatoutdoorspodcast.com, where you can find fun merch like this hat and this sweater. We also have things like fishing gear and some other fun stuff on there as well. Today we have Hank Gibson. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. So one of the ways that I like to just start these is just kind of go into how you first started getting into an interest or doing activities in the outdoors.
My introduction into the outdoors, I didn't really come from a long line of hunters and outdoorsmen. I had some great grandfathers that were born and raised in rural southeastern Kentucky. So in the mountains, I think that was just one of those things that's what you had to do to provide for your family. When I was probably, I guess, around 10 or 11, my dad actually got into hunting. And I was always riding dirt bikes and playing outside and kind of doing the outdoors thing. But when I saw him get into the deer hunting part of it, it was something that really struck my interest. I think when I turned 12 or 13, he would start letting me tag along with him in the woods. He was learning himself. So we kind of learned together when it came to the deer hunting part of things. I had my stepdad at the time was an avid hunter. And once he found out that it was something I would be interested in, he also started taking me along with him, just kind of learning the ropes. I can remember the first time that I ever actually deer hunted myself. It was one of those things where we're bebopping into the woods and he finds walk into a tree, and he said, "This is where you're going to sit for the day. I'll be back at dark." And, 12, 13 hours later, I think he found me underneath the tree covered up in leaves because I was freezing to death. Never seen any deer that day, but I think after that I was pretty well hooked. I had a couple cousins and an uncle that were also avid outdoorsmen that would take me along squirrel hunting with them when I was really little. But once I got into it, and started learning the basics, I was hooked. It was kind of all I really thought about. In wood shop in class, I was making wooden deer clocks and really just become obsessed with it. Over the years, when I started learning woodsmanship and the basis behind it, obviously it wasn't easy back in those days in southeastern Ohio. The deer population wasn't nearly what it was today. I actually went 5 years without killing my first deer. But once I harvested that first one, I was all in. The first deer I had a shot at was a really nice 8-pointer that came in, and I shot the deer and we never did end up finding it that day. So the next day when some more deer came in, I ended up shooting this deer like 5 times to make sure that it didn't get back up. So there obviously wasn't much meat left, but it was, once I got that first one under my belt, it was all I wanted to do. Every chance I got, I was in the woods.
I recently released an article about my first deer, and I think I just got too excited or something, and I pulled the shot, so it went right across the brisket, completely obliterated it, and I had to take a second shot, which I was a little frustrated because it you know how like dogs when they hurt a leg and they're just kind of standing there waiting to see if they can wait it out and then put pressure on it kind of thing.
Uh,
So it was doing that behind a huge tree, and I just couldn't see around it to take it out. And I wasn't even sure I had hit it, but I'm like, I can see the look on its face. I
yeah.
was the only thing I could see was its head. And I was like, I've seen that look before in a dog, and I definitely hit this thing, and I need to make sure I get it out of its misery as soon as I can. It just wasn't moving for several minutes.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but I was looking forward to the brisket, unfortunately. So that was a goner.
Right. Yeah. It was a running shot, and I actually shot the deer in its leg. So it fell and it just kept trying to get back up. And, I didn't really know any better. Every time it tried to get back up, I'd send another shell downrange at it. And when it was all said and done, there wasn't a whole lot left. But I ended up tagging out that year. I think it was, you could kill 3 or 4 deer back then in that area. But I focused for many, many years on just learning the basics of harvesting deer. I wasn't picky at all. I came from I hunted on the ground for the first few years. And then me and my dad got some Summit climbers for Christmas one year. And then really started getting into the whole tree stand hunting. And obviously you see a whole lot more deer that way than, bebopping around on foot, sitting on 5-gallon buckets. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I bet. So when you were ground hunting, do you still do that at all today, or do you find that too much of a disadvantage?
No, I do still do some ground hunting. The end of last year, I got into mobile hunting. It was for years I was hunting, on ladder stands and corn piles.
Mhm.
But I had a buddy that started talking about saddle hunting, and I started talking to him about that. And now I do more scouting than I hunt. I'll scout my way into these places. And if the situation presents a better setup by hunting on the ground, then that's what I'll do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you bring that up because I was taking a quick look at your Facebook page and the image you have in the banner with the compound bow and the canoe there.
Yeah.
But it looks like you have a stand and a fishing pole. So this is going to be my first year getting into bow hunting, and that's what you have there is pretty much what I have in my head of putting together with a canoe and everything.
Yeah.
For where I want to try to go.
That is so the end of last year, when I said I got into the mobile hunting part of things, I've always loved to fish. I've never been a real big boat guy, but I started looking into some of these places that I hunt, and water access was it was key. And it's just something I had always overlooked. I never, if there was water around it, I just didn't go into it. So I ended up buying a kayak and just kind of dabbling into that. And that picture that you saw was a friend of mine and we did a weekend camping trip. We got, into the river access, and we kayaked and fished our way 6 miles down this river into an area that he hunts. It's some public land, and we hunted for 2 days, camped, we just roughed it for a couple days, and then we hunted for, I think it was 2 days, and then it was another 5 or 6 miles back down river to get to where his dad ended up picking us up. But by far one of the coolest fishing trips I've ever been on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much what I had in mind. As soon as I saw that, I immediately knew, okay, this is probably the same thing that I'm trying to put together.
Yep. I just threw everything I thought I would need, and we just jumped on the river and did it up.
Yep. Very cool. So is that you started doing that just recently?
Yeah. This was my first full year of the kayak access and mobile access on things. So lots of trial and errors. One of the first times back in the summer, I scouted. I've always hunted private land.
Mm-hmm.
And the place where I hunt, I started looking at Onyx maps and was actually able to find that there's a public hunting area behind this specific or particular place. And when I started scouting in the summertime, I found a real nice creek more of like a tributary off of a lake that goes back through this area. And it was just trial and error. It was in the middle of summer. My first kayak was it was an Ascend 12T from Bass Pro.
Hmm.
It was a nice starter kayak, but the rain, it had been raining for a couple days real hard before I went out, and I got down to the area, and I'm looking in the river, or the creek didn't look that bad. It was up, but I'm like, you know what? Now's the time to learn how to do it. It's summertime. If I end up in the water, I don't have to worry about freezing to death. So I got all my stuff, and luckily I had tethered everything to the kayak
Yeah.
itself. And as soon as I got into it, the water took me downstream at a rapid pace. So I round this bend, and there was a deadfall that the times in the past it didn't look bad because the water was so low.
Yeah.
Well, now that the water was up, I that's the only way I could go. The water was rushing that way. So I ended up getting blown off the kayak. I went through it, and it blew me off the kayak, and my life jacket inflated, and the kayak's upside down, and all my stuff's floating next to the kayak. And luckily I was able to get back on the kayak, and I had everything tethered, and I didn't lose anything. But it was I got some video footage of me afterwards thanking the good Lord above that I made it. And that was my first real situation where water access was the key, and it dang near killed me.
Yeah. Well, I guess so. You got to focus on slower water from now on, then.
I am. Yes, I that's one of the first things I look at before I go out. But I also invested in a nicer kayak. I
Okay.
got one of it's a New Canoe Unlimited, and it's a tank. It won't tip over. It got a 650-pound weight rating. It holds all my gear, and I have no problems with that. So it's just it was trial and error.
Yeah. It also seems like on the larger ones, there's a little like paddle clamp you can put on the back and attach a trolling motor to it.
Yep. Yep.
So I thought about getting into some down rig fishing.
Yeah. So the one that I got it's set up that you can do several different setups with. You can do like a 2.5 horse gas motor. I've got it's a 30 oh the 30 pound truss trolling motor. I got a nice lightweight battery on it, and I just hook it all back in the back, put the battery pack in, and that really helps for going back upstream. And, getting downstream is not the problem. It's that if you have to go back the way you came, that
Right.
you really have to put forth the effort. So there's so many different options now. I can send you what I've got, and what I've bought and didn't work, and what seems to be working for me now.
Yeah. No, I'd appreciate that. That's a good point though about having to go back, because there is a river by me that I thought about going down, and they have different access points. There's outfitters that if you pay them, they'll bus you back
Hmm.
because they rent their own stuff as well. Um, but if I threw on a trolling motor or something like that on it, I guess I could just come right back to my truck and not
Yeah.
have to worry about that.
Yeah, I've done it a couple different times. I've had, guys pick me up downstream. But when you're by yourself and you're coming in after dark, that seems to be the way to go,
Right.
is just to troll back up. Um, it seems to be the most user friendly way.
Right. Well, Lewis and Clark spent most of their journey going upstream, and
Yep,
all
there
they
you
did
go.
was paddle.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the water access thing is for me is that's been one of the funner things that I've got to do when it comes to hunting. Just because I mean, most of your public spots, like guys aren't going to want to put much effort into getting to your spot. So that's what I did this year. I focused on getting to those really hard to reach places that nobody else would get to or wanted to get to. And I definitely the amount of deer that I see it's been huge. I've been after a real nice, probably 180-inch deer the last 3 years, and to kayak downstream and get into the backside of his bedroom was it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Are you putting up cameras down there?
I am, yeah. I use cell cams. I really the last few couple of years I've really the Tacticam reveals is what I use, and I'll put them 2 sticks high in the tree
Hmm.
to where nobody can really see them. And we've got some real nice deer on camera that way.
Okay. Very cool. There's one spot that we using Onyx maps that I have scouted out on off a lake that I really want to try, and I'm trying to decide if I can get away with just using one camera.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I did. I scouted this area the end of season last year and kind of started putting it together. The spot that I was hunting this deer was private, like I said, and it's only a little 4 acre track. And being able to find, with the Onyx maps that there was a whole lot of public behind. Um, I went in and after season, there's no greenery. There's, you can see the trails. You don't have to worry about boogering up an area. And we were able to get in and get into his bedroom, and get those. We had 2 cameras up back there, and it's one of those things. Those big deer, they don't get big for being silly.
Hmm.
He was just always one step ahead of us. I had him actually on trail camera yesterday. He showed up. I hadn't seen him the last 3 years. Historical data on him. We knew that early season he was there all the time. But I think that he was betting on this property that I hunted and was watching us come in to hunt on the private side, and then he would just go out the back end, and we never really did see him.
Yeah.
So
Was there anything you noticed that would indicate what he was using to either like bed down in to hide behind, or maybe like he was on top of something that he could get a visual of all that?
yeah, so what Wyatt and I, my son, what we figure is that the area that we hunted was a small, from side to side was really narrow. It was deep, and he was bedding in some cedars. So where we parked, we were thinking that he was bedding in that area, and if he wasn't bedding, he was coming from the public side, but he was coming in behind us to wind check either for us or the does, and then he would J hook in and come back down the downwind side, and he would know if there was any danger there. My thought, going into this, was, he's used to human activity. The guy's house is probably 50 yards from where our stand was, so I thought that he was going to be okay with some human intrusion. But like I said, it's been 3 years that we've been after this one specific deer, and every year he was there. He'd be on our cameras when we weren't there, and we'd try to change it up or move our stands, and it was like clockwork. He wasn't there when we were there. That's why we thought, coming in the backside of this property via water, we could sneak in and catch him slipping, and change up what he was used to, the normal corn piles and ladder stands, because there's hunters everywhere. I mean, we knocked on doors, and there's hunters everywhere.
Yeah.
So
That's yeah. And that's my concern with public, but I guess the water access hopefully will mitigate that.
yeah, I was there quite a bit, just doing scouting through postseason last year, and then all through summer. I mean, I was putting like 6 or 7 miles a day, going through and trying to find, his core area, and try to pattern him. And he was just always one step ahead of us. So yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're taking one of your sons out for these scouts.
Yep. I got hold on, let me think. Yeah, I have a 13-year-old son, and my daughter is 6. She's not quite ready to hit the woods yet, but him and I, that's kind of our thing. We started it. It's called Hank and Wyatt Outdoors. last year we started trying to film our hunts and, anything that we're doing, hunting, fishing, camping, whatever. So I try to bring him with me every chance I get.
Yeah. When did you start doing that?
So I started bringing him into the woods when he was probably around 4. I just
Hmm.
bring him with me on scouting trips, bringing early season into the ground blind with me, and he got hooked just like I did. Started shooting crossbows in the backyard, getting him comfortable with shooting a bow, with firearms, firearm safety. We excuse me. We let's see. Yeah, so when he was 4 is when we started hitting the woods. The first year that he hunted, he was 7. We hunted hard all season with the crossbow and the ground blind. And we were able to. He ended up harvesting his first deer late season that year with a crossbow.
Hmm. Very cool.
Yeah,
Is he still using crossbow or has he upgraded since?
he did. So he's killed 4 deer in the last 5 years. He killed his first deer with a crossbow, and then the next year he ended up killing a doe with a crossbow, and then the third year he got a real nice 6-pointer with his. I bought him a 350 Legend. Every year for Christmas and his birthday, I try to buy him something that he can use forever. I bought him a 350 Legend one year. I got him a set of Vortex binoculars one year. The crossbow, I told him this year, I said, hey, I want you to really start thinking about switching over to a compound. You're at an age now, you're a teenager, you've been able to harvest a couple deer with a crossbow. I don't have anything against crossbows. I've killed a ton of them myself, but his birthday was January 5th, a couple weeks ago, and I got him his first compound bow. So that's the plan, is to spend the next year getting up to the draw weight that he needs and
Mhm.
comfortable shooting out to 20 or 30 yards. So we're excited about that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully he and I have success with that this year.
Yeah. Well, I've been hunting 26, 27 years, and I killed my first deer with a compound bow this year. It's, like I said, I grew up with the old guys, crossbows and slug guns. So for years I hunted with a crossbow, and then several years ago, before he was born, I ended up buying a compound bow and shot with it for a long time, but I never did harvest a deer with it. So when he was born, money wasn't quite where it is now. I ended up trading that compound bow for a nice Barnett crossbow, so that him and I both could hunt with it.
Mm,
And then the last few years, that's what we did. And then last year, I ended up buying a nice new Matthews bow and shot. I ended up giving myself a tennis elbow. I was shooting 50 arrows a day every day through summer, and got real comfortable with it, and was able to harvest. I did a controlled hunt with the state of Ohio. Every year they do lotteries in some of your like parks and wildlife areas, and we were able to get drawn for a 2-week lottery hunt in one of the game preserves here in Ohio. It used to be an old Boy Scout camp, and the state of Ohio bought it and turned it into a wildlife area. And it was really cool. We had our own zone, and we had access to it for 2 weeks. So I ended up harvesting a nice doe on it the last evening.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
bet that felt good being able
Oh
to get
man,
that in.
it was fun. Yeah, it worked out. We scouted our way into this place. It was right after this real heavy snow, and we're able to get on good deer sign and set up. And I ended up seeing it was like 20, 21, 22 deer that evening. And I had a buddy of mine that was hunting with me, and I was trying to let some of them get past him, and a couple of the yearlings ended up winding me, and they started to blow out, and was able to get a shot on a real nice one.
Yeah. Very
It was
cool.
this year was a year of minis for me, or mini news, with the water access, the compound bow, mobile hunting. And we ended up, after I harvested that deer, the wind it was just brutal temperatures, super high winds. And we ended up waiting till the next morning to go find the deer. I knew I put a good shot on her and had hoped that the coyotes wouldn't get on her, but we ended up going in the next morning and found her within 100 yards of where I shot her. But we were able to we were so deep into this public place that we quartered the deer out. We skinned it and then did a gutless method, that is what they call it, and then quartered her out and just packed her out in packs like they do out west. And that was a game changer for me. Rather than drag her out, I mean, we were a good mile and a half in and through ravines and huge ridges, so it really made things super easy.
Yeah. Did you do the gutless because of the time?
No, just it was I had Wyatt with me, and just we've always field dressed our deer and drug them out, or if we're on private, we'd bring them out on four wheelers or side by side. So it was more so just we wanted to try it, and that was one of the things that they showed on YouTube was the gutless method. Basically, just you cut down the spine and pull everything down towards the bottom. Quarter your shoulders and your rears, pull out your back straps, and then you do have to kind of pull a little bit of the guts out to get your inner loins out, but you just leave everything else there.
Yeah. Interesting.
So, yeah, it was. I had never for years. I don't think you could even do that in Ohio. You had to bring the whole deer out, but with everything going electronic now, it seems to be a lot of the guys. I follow a lot of. There's I would say a buddy of mine. I don't really know him that well, more from social media. He does, it's called, I don't know if this is like a shout out, but it's called the Mobile Hunter Expo. A guy named Christopher Leopard. Follow a lot of his stuff online with YouTube and Facebook and stuff. And these guys are going into these public places and harvesting these deer and just packing them out that way.
Okay, that makes sense. So did you take the whole thing then out because of
no I put the back straps in a game bag and the inner loins in a game bag, and then we just cut the shoulders off, and then the rear, and just put them in game bags and put them in our backpacks and walked out. We left the carcass, the spine, everything else there.
Yeah. Okay. I think the guy that I interviewed for the previous podcast, which wouldn't have come out yet before this one. But I think he actually runs a booth at the Mobile Hunter Expo.
Yeah.
But just it seems like a small world with all the whole hunting community. Everybody.
It really is, and those guys, man, they've been great. Just with education, podcasts at work. I'm in the truck all day and out running jobs, and that's what I do all day is just listen to podcasts. But the websites that they on their platforms, I've learned the most from those because those guys, they're all about helping each other and continuing your education when it comes to woodsmanship, it's definitely, I'm finding the more I get into it, especially the mobile side of things, it's a small world. Everybody kind of knows everybody, but it's been fun.
Yeah, we're just doing this has been a very interesting experience, seeing everybody that's popped up interested in doing interviews and getting all the information that I've been getting. Yeah.
Where now? Are you in North Carolina?
I am. Yeah, I'm just south of Raleigh.
Okay. Yeah. It's so cool. You talk to guys from all over the United States.
Yeah.
The southern guys are hunting completely different than the northern guys or the Midwest. And it's over the years you develop or learn a certain way of that you hunt, and to be able to go out and just get on your phone and talk with some of these guys with the packing out or the mobile hunting, it's been great. I was able to get my son his own saddle this year, and that's something that we've really, really enjoyed, is just being able to get in and like I said, scout your way into these places and just set up depending on the sign and the wind. And if it wasn't for the social media platforms, we would have never known how to do it or where to find it.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely been a big help. I'm originally from California, so I've seen some of that West Coast, East Coast, the differences and dynamics firsthand. So that's kind of been interesting to have a compare and contrast.
Yeah. Yeah. That's been, you know, guys out west. I can remember talking to a friend of mine that we were bouncing back ideas on tactics. He's in the Marine Corps, and he he was stationed in Ohio, and he was talking about doing some spot and stalking.
Hmm.
And I'm like, what? Like, no, in Ohio, we don't do that. You're in a stand. And the more him and I started talking and hearing his tactics on how he's from Arizona, and on how they're spotting and stalking these animals, you can use it anywhere. You just gotta, use it to your advantage.
Yeah, that was one of the first, uh, I guess you could call it culture shocks when I moved here. I was looking up different outfitters, and I'm like, is there not anyone that doesn't do a stand or
Right.
some kind of um, I don't know, the house you shoot from or anything like that?
Yeah.
And I guess part of that is in this area, depending on the county you're in, there are laws about needing to be so high off the ground before you can fire.
Oh, wow.
Um, but if you go, there are places you can go, like especially closer to like the national forest areas, that's not an issue. And I think it might just be because it's growing so fast where we are, that they're trying to avoid someone sending something into someone's house, because
Yeah.
there's like you could be hunting the same woods, but all of a sudden there's a suburban community on the other side of it.
Hmm. Yeah, it's kind of similar here. In the part of Ohio that I live in was for years was rural, and now it's you've got communities popping up everywhere. To think that there'd be a 180-inch whitetail on a 2-acre track in somebody's backyard, I'd have told you were crazy 20 years ago.
Hmm.
But now they're everywhere. They don't have anywhere to go. Ohio switched from a slug gun to a straight wall cartridge rifle a few years ago, and that's been, I mean, for years that the thought of hunting with a rifle in Ohio was unheard of. But it's been, you see guys everywhere now. They're hunting on the ground. They're hunting out of stands. They're in box blinds. It's you got a little bit of everything now.
Yeah. So, what about your daughter?
Yeah, Harlan is 6, and she is going to be uh she'll either be the death of me or she's going to be my hunting buddy. She's been she, we gave her my son Wyatt's one of those little bear kitty bows. Uh when he outgrew that, him and I in the summertime, and we'd go out and shoot, and she'd always be out there with us. So eventually she said, "Well, Daddy, when do I get to shoot?"
Hmm.
And I said, "Well, baby, if you want to, you can do it now." And she's something else. She's at 6. She's going to speak her mind, and she's going to, I keep telling her, "What do I got to do to get you to go hunting with me? What do I got to do? Bribe her with candy or whatever." But I don't think she's ready yet. She enjoys shooting with us. She enjoys, watching hunting videos or seeing the deer. But being a girl dad is completely different than having a boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm almost wondering if my daughter's going to be more of a hunting buddy for me than my oldest son.
yeah.
Because my oldest son's interested in it, but he's always been more. I want to something similar to sensitive, but I feel like that word's too strong. But she's on the other hand, like grabbing bugs, playing with it, holding frogs to the point that I'm like, you're going to kill that thing. Even just tonight, we had steaks for dinner, and she said snakes, and I was like, I can get a snake and grill it. And she's like, can we go now and get
Oh, wow.
it?
Yeah. I mean, with my son, it's more, for years, it's been, I go out and scout and I set up the spots and we get up and go. And this year I've really tried to focus on you're going to work for this. I'm going scouting, and if you're going to hunt with me, you're gonna go do the work in the scouting. I didn't allow him to hunt opening day this year because I had worked all summer finding these spots and the sign and setting up, and every time I'm like, hey buddy, do you want to come with me? And he's, no, I'm doing this, or he's in football and taekwondo, and um I think trying to instill those values that anything worth having is going to be hard work, is key, especially in their generation. With my little girl, she's kind of my ride or die. She's up to if I want to go do something, she'll go do it with me. She's usually pretty timid at first, but I don't know. I think Wyatt's going to be, he's definitely my hunting buddy. And I knew he was going to be before he was born. It was just one of those things. I knew I was going to have a son someday, and he was going to be my hunting buddy. And from the time he was crawling around, he had a deer antler or some kind of hunting something at all times. With my little girl, though, she's definitely a princess when it comes to a lot of things. So I think, I don't know. We'll see.
What about fishing for the both of them?
Yeah. Wyatt loves to fish. She is not quite there yet. We haven't really done any of that. But he's gotten into the kayak fishing. I kept the original kayak that I bought for hunting for him, and that's something that he really enjoys. This year we're going to try to go in and kayak into some of these places and do some camping. She's really on the fence. I'm not really sure which way she's going to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely, we love to fish. He's always watching some kind of new video on some new technique. He bought some bait casters last year, and I spent 3 hours ripping lips, crappie and bluegill and bass, and he spent 3 hours untangling rat nests. So trial and error.
Yeah. My son, he had one of the, I don't know, 3 foot long poles, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just got a simple button on the bottom so he can release the line when he casts. And he just has like these weighted plastic fish, and he goes in the front yard and practices with them.
Yeah.
He loves that thing.
Yeah, we did that with my little girl this summer. I would just take a couple weights on our poles, and she'd just be out there throwing them. But I've asked her if she wanted to go fishing with us, and she hasn't wanted to go yet. I've tried not to push, either one of them, them into it. And I've told, my son, I said, I'm not gonna make you do this. I love it, and I want you to love it as much as I do, but I don't want you to go do something, in the outdoors that you don't want to do.
Right. I think I'd have to say both my oldest two, they like the idea, because like when I do take them fishing, they're excited. My sometimes I'll go out on a little canoe, and I can't bring both kids, so usually it's my oldest son, because I'm assuming he's gonna have the most patience. But like if I take them both to like a little pond or something like that, they both get bored pretty quickly, and it's like, well, we just set up. What do you mean you want to leave already?
Yeah, that's been one of the biggest things for me is holding their attention. If you go out and when they're that age and they're not catching fish, and it's not, sparking interest or stimulating their mind, that their attention span's gone pretty quick. So trying to find, a good spot, a good farm pond that they're going to catch fish, or, going out in the woods and hoping that they see deer. I think that's the thing, is keeping their interest, keeping their minds going. When my son was little, we'd go in and we'd have a bag full of snacks and an iPad and coloring books. And I got pictures of him and I when he was just a little guy in the deer blind coloring. You just got to keep their interest, keep it fun for them. Otherwise, if it becomes boring, that's just, I think that's the key to it.
Yeah. That's partly why I was looking into the downrigger, because even if I don't end up getting the canoe anytime soon, I have a place that I can rent kayaks with trolling motors,
Yeah.
So if I clamp the downrigger on that, I can go around that particular lake, and they both are interested in driving it.
Right.
So I figure as long as they're not just going in circles, I can set up the downrigger. They can drive somewhat of a straight line, and then when a fish does bite, they can reel it in.
Yeah. Yeah. We did that this summer. We would do find a small lake somewhere and just and throw the kayaks in the back of the truck and just go paddle around and try to catch fish. We're both at the kayak side of thing. We're both learning as we go on that. Um, there's a bunch of different lakes around here where you can rent small little john boats, and they're just the areas are full of fish. But yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Do they have, well, probably more your son, if anything, any like bucket list fishing trips or any hunts that he wants to do?
Um, yeah, so I've got family in Kentucky. This year was my first year of doing out of state hunting. It's rural southeastern Kentucky and the mountains, Appalachian Mountains. So this was the first year that I had got into that. My dad passed away a few years ago unexpectedly, and it was kind of hunting was mine and his thing, and they had moved down there several years prior, and him and I had always talked about hunting in the mountains, on our family's place that our family has owned since the 1800s. So I got into that this year, and that's kind of I guess the bucket list you said for my son is to be able to go down there and harvest a deer on the family farm. That's yeah, it was definitely I always say that when I'm in the woods, I'm 20 feet closer to God. Um, this year, I felt 20 feet closer to my dad.
Yeah.
Every time I've hunted this year. There's been a cardinal, a redbird, in that area, and it stays in that area the whole time I'm there. So when Wyatt and I started talking about, what his hopes and dreams are in the outdoor world, it was that was one of the things that he wants to do is go down there and be able to harvest a deer. So out of state hunting license pretty expensive these days, but Kentucky does some nice things for the youth. They actually have a free youth weekend that you can come in and you don't have to buy an out of state hunting license or anything. So we're going to try to do that. We tried to do it this year, but it was close to the holidays and it was while we were doing that lottery hunt, so we weren't able to.
Yeah.
So I'd love to. We chartered a fishing boat in Florida a couple years ago, but it was inland, and we didn't end up doing real well. But he really loved that. We try to do a family vacation every year, so I think that's something that him and I are going to try to do is do a charter out into the deep part of the ocean and let him catch some red snapper and stuff. I've done that several times, and it's just so much fun.
Oh yeah, those are always a blast.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will say that's the one thing I definitely miss about California is I prefer the Pacific when it comes to just the beaches and fishing, ocean fishing.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. I'm over here on the East Coast now.
Right. Yeah. We did a charter in Mexico. We did a kind of a group's vacation a couple years ago and did a charter out there. That was ceviche on the boat.
Oh yeah.
In the middle of the ocean, that was something. It was a cool experience. They're cutting up the fish and throwing the lime and the peppers and stuff in it, and that was definitely a really cool experience.
Yeah, that sounds like it. I'm gonna have to figure out what charter that was.
Yeah, I'll have to let you know. It was and actually a friend of mine is I'm in a motorcycle club,
Mhm.
and it's all police officers and firefighters, and that was one of the things that we did. We just went down there as a group, but him and his wife are part of a like a group where you pay into this place, and you can vacation all over. So they actually went back and met this guy again and did the charter again and actually met this guy's family, and just made a whole to do out of it. So they said that the fishing was phenomenal then as well.
Yeah. Is it like a timeshare or is it more of a private thing?
Yeah, I think it's like a timeshare where yeah, they there's a bunch of different resorts that you can stay at and
Oh, okay.
you can go, pick so many a year.
All right. So jumping back to what you said you were hunting, you said it was a robin that you were seeing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there something significant with that in relation to your father, or you just
Yes,
that's
well, so they've always said that that when you see a red bird, it's a loved one that has passed and gone to heaven reincarnated.
mm,
That's what I've always heard. If because you see a red bird in the tree and you say, oh, there's dad or there's Papaw. It's I don't know if that's just something that my family has said, but yeah, it's every literally, and I've hunted. I think it was like my 48th or 49th sit uh, 2 days ago. And every time that I've been in the woods, wherever I'm at, there's either one or a group of redbirds that just kind of hang out and just fly around and stay on the limbs of wherever I'm at.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah, you have to look into that. I don't know
Yeah,
specifically what it says, but that's something that we've always heard is if you see a red bird, that it's a loved one that that came down from heaven
just say hi.
just to say hi. Yeah, it's almost kind of eerie. I was doing some videos. I'll send it to you. This one just it was he or she was just such a pretty color red. And she was right there with me for like a 5 hour morning sit in the snow, ripping wind. And she was just right there.
Hmm, interesting. So
Yeah.
that's all been local though,
Yeah.
for that you weren't
Well,
like
no,
anything
Ohio and Kentucky.
in both. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously I don't think they're the same birds, but in my mind, I'll just say a little prayer and say, Dad, thanks for coming.
Yeah. Well, on that note, where do you see God in the great outdoors?
Oh, man, I think that those two things have kept me grounded and kept me on the path that I need to be on. I'm closer to God in the outdoors. I always say that's my church. I try to go to church as much as possible, but it seems like whenever I'm out there is that's when I find the answers I'm looking for. It gets my heart or soul where it needs to be. It's that's where I'm most peaceful at. I like riding motorcycles and love spending time with my children and family. But the last couple of years, I've really, really I've hunted more than I ever have, and I think it's more so um, that that's where I'm at peace.
Yeah.
Um, it's I can go out and have a bad day or a bad week, and I'll hike 5 or 6 miles, back into a place and set up. And it seems like as soon as I get out there, my heart my heart and head is in a much better place.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you've been in blinds with your son. Do you find that to be kind of like away from technology and stuff like that to open up and have him, does he share things that a little more intimate, I guess?
For sure. For sure. We're always together whenever we hunt. I usually will set up either if we're in a ladder stand, I'll set up, uh my one stick or a hang on stand, a lightweight hang on stand right over his shoulder. If we're in a blind, obviously I'm right next to him, but that's where him and I have the most in common. At 13 years old, he's into gaming, he's into, all the things that 13-year-olds are into, but that's the one place that him and I can relate to on everything. It's where we're the happiest. It's where I think we pray more in a deer stand than we ever do anywhere else.
Mm,
So we're able to slow down. turn off the phones or put the phones in our pockets. He said a couple weeks ago, he said, Dad, I didn't even pick up my phone one time. He harvested a 4-pointer back in the rut with his crossbow this year. And he said, Dad, I didn't even pick my phone up one time. And I said, I think that's kind of the point, buddy. That we can just detach from this cruel world that we live in sometimes and just be at peace, to be, with God or one with nature. That's where, yeah, like that's where I'm happiest. And I know that that's where, like he said, or like I said, that we have the most in common.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, we pray every time we get in the stand. We say a prayer. We thank God for the opportunity to be out there. We ask that if we do have the opportunity to harvest something, that it's humane and swift, and to protect us and let us be closer to the big man upstairs. So yeah,
Yeah, I love hearing that.
yeah.
So when you were saying, so he's right below you on a hang on stick. Is that what you said?
So we have a couple different. When we went mobile, it changed a little bit. He's still getting used to the whole saddle hanging from your tether. It's If you're not used to being on ropes, it can be intimidating. So a lot of times we've done several different ways this year, but the most common thing is I'll set up a ladder stand. So if it's a private area, we'll set up a ladder stand, and then I've got it's a Lone Wolf Custom Gear .5, the real lightweight mobile stand. So I can bring that in on my back, and I just usually end up climbing up the ladder stand and then setting that stand it would be right over his left or right shoulder. So that allows me to be, in line with him over his shoulder, to be able to tell him, what to do. He pretty much I don't have to tell him to do much anymore. But it seems to be, a real close, intimate way to guide him throughout the hunt.
Yeah.
We've both hiked into some public spots, and I just bring either 4 sticks, or sometimes I don't know, have you ever heard of one sticking?
I've heard, I want to say it was with 2, where like you just switch them off going up.
Yeah, so one stick, and you end up, it's Eastern Woods Outdoor Ultimate One Stick is the name of it. It's a 15-inch stick with a 3-step aider, and it's got a small curved platform on the top. So what you do is, I got 40 feet of rappel rope, and you put the stick up on the tree, kind of just above head length, to where those aiders are in line. They're 15-inch aiders as well. And you'll climb up those aiders onto that stick, wrap your rope around it. You got a lineman's belt that you use to keep you in contact with the tree till you get to that point. And then you tie in with the tether, and basically you just kind of wrap your legs around the tree and reach down and grab the stick. It's got a cam cleat with a rope around it. Am steel rope is what it's called. And then you just basically put it back up, up above you, wrap it around the tree. And all you have to do is pack in is that one small little stick, and it weighs under 6 pounds.
Right.
So you can get into anywhere that you need. But so what we did with both of us hunting is, we brought in his sticks. There was just four sticks, and then his little platform. And then I brought in mine, and I got him set up, and he was able to climb and get set in. And I just basically, him and I were in the same tree, hanging from the tethers. We did that for youth season this year, and it set up real nice too.
Okay. So
yeah.
Are you hanging with your footing? Are you just 100% relying on the tether, or are you putting your foot on a ladder or anything like that?
No, so the one stick, and then in his case, it's a platform. Basically, that's your platform. It's probably I think it's probably 12 inches by 8 inches.
Mm-hmm.
So but you're using the tree in front of you as your it keeps you between you and the deer, and then you can pretty much shoot 360 degrees around the tree.
Right.
But it's not super comfortable. All day sits make it tough, but yeah, there's enough footing to be able. That's been the biggest hurdle for him is hunting with a crossbow specifically, is trying to brace the bow on something to be able to take the shot. With the saddle hunting, all you're using is a rope bridge to be able to do that. So that's where this coming year we're really going to practice on with the compound bow that I got him, being able to shoot in those different angles.
Yeah. You feel like you have more flexibility than a crossbow?
Yes, yeah, most definitely.
Is that because it weighs less?
Uh, I I would say no. I think it's more so I think with especially young kids, you got to use the crossbow. You brace it on something so that they can get an accurate shot.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of the compound bow because you have to practice. You have to get really good with it, and the maneuverability is a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah. For kids, definitely the crossbow is the way to go. But I felt like at 13, it was time for him to start practicing with the longbow.
What's the distance that a crossbow's I don't know if you would use the word rated for or something like that with aligning with the scope?
Oh, I some of these crossbows are accurate out to 100 yards.
Oh, really?
They're shooting, upwards of probably 500-600 feet per second. So I know some of these. I mean, they're high dollar. They're $5,000-6,000.
Yeah.
But I've seen some of them that you can shoot out to 100 yards. I've never felt comfortable with a crossbow at anywhere probably farther than 50 yards, and more so 20 or 30.
I can see why that would be more kid friendly though.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that's the way. In my opinion, that was the way to go to get him into it, to get him comfortable with the moving and being able to accurately range how far the deer is, and be able to have it on a platform or a rail or a shooting stick, to be able to get an ethical shot. Definitely much more than a compound bow. I think more why I decided, and him and I both talked about moving from the crossbow to a compound bow was just to make it more intense, or I don't know what the word would be. So
More of a sport like challenge,
yeah,
maybe.
yeah, more of a challenge. That's it. Yeah, it's a whole lot different shooting a deer with a compound bow than a crossbow. That's for sure. You have to wait till the deer is not paying attention to you to have to draw back.
Do you yourself have any bucket list hunts or fishing trips in mind?
Um, no, I guess bucket list would be to kill a 150-inch whitetail with my compound bow.
Yeah.
I've killed a lot of deer over the years for many years. It wasn't about the size. It was just more, I enjoyed eating the deer. And that was just kind of the farmers that we hunted with. It was, you weren't killing because of size. Everybody wants to kill a big buck. But for me, I've killed it enough over the years that the last couple of years, I've really started to get a lot more picky, more mature animal than anything. The size is great, but to be able to ethically harvest a mature whitetail in his natural habitat is something, that, as it gets the blood pumping. So I'd love to kill Big Daddy, the deer that we've been after for the last 3 years, with a compound bow. But I've done a lot of really cool things. I've been blessed. I've been on some really cool charter fishing trips. A few years ago, I was able to do a guided whitetail hunt that was super cool. It wasn't quite what I expected, but that was definitely on my bucket list. My sister lives in Arizona, so I'd love to be able to go out there and go elk hunting or mule deer hunting.
Yeah.
Her and her husband were able to kill each of them killed a coos deer 2 years ago.
Oh,
And that was just so cool. She's great. She's kind of she's my younger sister, but uh, she's my mentor than me, her. So she was able to harvest a cow elk a few years ago. So yeah, I think, you know, that's ultimate would be to be able to go out west and spot and stock an animal like that.
yeah. That's definitely one on my bucket list as well.
Yeah, I see. And on the backside is the wild boar tusks.
Oh, behind me?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, those were actually the ram and the boar. That was the same day
yeah.
on a hunt I was doing in I guess you'd call it like Central California,
Okay.
kind of in right outside some wine country area.
Yeah, yeah. I did. I did it was it. Oh, hold on a second. It was a wild boar, but it was like 750 pounds. Oh, it was a Russian wild boar. Huh.
Yeah.
A friend of mine and I went out, and it was on a preserve, but we were able to go in and each harvest a real nice Russian wild boar. So I got the tusks on that. That was something I had no idea that the tusks. You see these big tusks. My motorcycle club is called the Iron Pigs, and our logo is a wild boar. But I had no idea that 90% of that tusk was in the jaw of the pig. Only a small amount, and we're going in and spotting stocking these animals, and I'm looking and I'm like, those tusks aren't that big. And hindsight now, it's because most of it was in the jaw. So I'll send you some pictures. It was a real nice boar.
Yeah. Did you end up mounting that?
No, I just got the tusks.
You did keep them though.
Yeah, yep. That and a whole bunch of meat. We've been eating pork sausage for the last year now. Anytime, I don't think I've bought any store meat in except for maybe chicken breast every now and then in a couple years. Every now and then, my son will want some hamburgers or something. But if it's pork, we're using the wild boar I harvested. And if we're making spaghetti or lasagna, we're using ground venison. And then steaks. That's the one thing he's always asking, Dad, you make us some back straps for breakfast? That's pretty much all we eat is wild game.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get to that point.
Yeah.
I want to say it probably took a year to get through that particular boar. It wasn't as big as the one you got. I want to say I think mine was 250, and then it was like 270. The one that my father-in-law got.
Yeah.
So they weren't huge, but they were enough to provide a good amount of meat.
Oh, for sure. How was the meat? Was it gamey at all?
So my wife has her own story with that one. Yeah, it was very gamey. And well, before I get to that, so it was kind of my first experience with big game. So I didn't know what to expect. And I have all these things in my head, like all pork tastes like bacon. There was actually one point in my life where I thought a pork tenderloin was just going to taste like bacon, and I cooked it and I am eating it. I'm like, this is not at all what I thought it would be.
Yeah.
So anyways, I had the pork meat, and the first thing I was going to do was a 50-50 burger. But I was running late for work one day. My father and I run a carpet cleaning business.
Okay.
So some jobs just go late sometimes so we can finish it. And so I was like, I need you to start it for me. Just put it, take some of the ground beef and the pounded ground pork, and we're going to make some patties out of that. And she opened it up, and it stank really bad. And she basically was like gagging. She's like, I don't even know if this is good. Like, you can eat this. So I get home and I'm dealing with it. And I'm like, yeah, this does smell. It's probably just gamey, but it does smell off. I end up calling the butcher, and he's asking me some questions. He's like, no, I think it's fine, but I mean, it's your family. You got to decide. One of the things he was telling me though is he thinks I shot it in heat, and I did shoot it in the heart, and he thinks the combination of the heat and adrenaline has caused the meat to be extra gamey.
Yeah.
And he's like, next time shoot a sow and shoot it in the head.
Ah, okay.
So we ended up cooking the rest of it like over time, but it was like she refused to eat it because of the first experience with the smell. So I'm hoping the next time I get a boar, I can have something that's a little more mild and convince her.
Yeah.
But the meat itself was really tasty. It was just every time you opened a package, it stank. And I even had a friend when I ended up moving, I had to give some of it away, so I gave it to a friend. And he's like, "That was the stinkiest and best tasting meat I've ever had."
I've always heard that wild boar, obviously their diet. I mean, they'll eat anything.
Yeah.
But I've always heard that's the downfall. You hear about guys going out in these areas that are just overrun by pigs, and it's just gamey. You can't even eat the meat. It's so bad.
Right.
The one that I harvested was, I mean, I'm not huge on game preserves. I like wild, going out and finding a wild animal. But this setup, it was a large preserve, but these animals were, they weren't quite your typical wild boar, I'll say.
Right.
It was more like a domesticated pig. But as far as gaminess goes, it just tastes like store-bought sausage. But I've had whitetails where one thing or another, they, you, like you say, if they're in heat, or if it's a buck and it's during the rut, those tarsal glands,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't cut those off, it can taint the meat. I've had, deer where it was just, I think it's all on how you prepare it for sure. I've tried to do all my own processing, but the last few years, it's with life and work and kids, I've just been having it processed at the local processor. But I've tasted, if you keep it clean, you get all of that silver skin off. It definitely tastes a whole lot less gamey.
Yeah.
I can remember back when I was a kid, it was always the thing, when you make the steaks, you got to cook them well done so that it doesn't taste as gamey, or you soak them in salt water or milk or Sunny Delight. There was all kinds of different things that you would prepare it to make it less gamey. And now, I mean, I pull it out of the pack and throw some salt and pepper on it and go to town.
Yeah, and I think it's specific to the animal because when I say last year, I mean 2023.
Yeah.
All the deer that I got were very clean. Like they just tasted like very lean steaks basically. And the one I had a poor year this last year in 24, but the only one I was able to harvest did have more of a gaminess to it. And I don't really know what that was. Part of me was curious, was like, maybe I got a CWD one, but the test on that came back negative. There was just, I don't know, something about that particular ones between years, maybe the food source changed possibly. It was the day I harvested it was pretty warm. So it's possible that maybe that had something to do with it. It just took me a little too long to get it in the, I don't think there's any bacteria issues, but maybe something happened to the meat. I just don't know. But I have learned, like, especially with that pork, strong sauces of something that's going to break down the meat a little bit. So you have like your vinegars and like citrus, where tomato sauce can help break it down.
Yeah.
The number one thing that worked for me is I made with that pork, I made breakfast sausage, and the maple syrup did the trick to just completely remove the gaminess with how bad that was. Yeah. So I think with anything I have in the future going, I guess more of like like some kind of molasses based sauce is probably a good way to hide very gamey meat.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. I've had a couple whitetails that were just from the get go, like you said, that when you're processing, it's kind of got that gamey smell.
Yeah.
And I would like it. I think I ended up making a meatloaf out of some of it, and just that the seasoning packs made it to where it took all that gaminess away.
Hmm.
So my daughter lives on chicken nuggets and French fries, so she's 6 and has never eaten a fruit or vegetable. So we're still. I don't think deer meat is in her future anytime soon. But my son and I love it.
Does she like fish?
No, no, not even fish sticks. She's been. I mean, and it's not for lack of trying. We've tried to starve her out. We've tried a little bit of everything, and she likes what she likes.
Yeah. One thing I've done that my kids love is I do it's just a basic beer battered fish, but I
Hmm.
use coconut oil and it adds just a small amount of sweetness to it.
Yeah.
And they love it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I cook with a lot of coconut oil now, so I'll have to try that.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
And I think I originally did it. What was the reason? I think I was just trying to use that instead of going with all these different like fake olive oils and stuff that
Yeah.
the grocery
Yeah.
stores are selling now.
I did the
Um,
carnivore thing for a while, and that was one of the things that that you could use to cook stuff in was
the coconut oil.
rather than their
Yeah,
seed oils and stuff.
yeah. Um, there is one particular olive oil that I get at Costco that's like directly from. It's like the only one that's actually from Italy. Um, but other than that, we tried. Like I even make my own beef tallow and try to use that. That's actually very effective. If you feel like your deer meat's pretty lean, is to use
Mhm.
some beef tallow. Um,
Hmm. Yeah.
I want. Go ahead.
No, I have some of that in the fridge, so that's we seem to like cooking the same ways.
Yeah. I guess I'm on to something then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so is jumping back to earlier, what made you want to be a firefighter?
That was something my dad was a fireman when I was a kid, and that was it was like a lifelong dream type of thing for me. He did it, so it was just only uh seemed to make sense that I did it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm still a volunteer firefighter and it's actually a community several communities away from me. They were in need of some guys with experience, and I went over there. The guy that was the fire chief was actually a firefighter with my dad back in the 80s, and I ended up going and I'm still going there from time to time and donate some of my time. So
Hmm.
I like helping people, helping the community. I've just always been a servant, I feel like.
Yeah. You ever do anything like that for uh like outdoors related things?
Um, no, no. The rope, I was on a rope rescue team. That helped with the whole mobile thing.
Yeah.
Was for years I'd been on ropes and comfortable with them, so getting back in that really helped that.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Is that was that just when you were full time though?
yeah, yeah.
The skills that cross over, it's always
Right.
interesting.
Yeah, that's it, and that's exactly. It was like it took a little while to get comfortable on it again, but it was kind of like riding a bike.
Yeah. I guess the only thing that would cross over for me when it comes to carpet cleaning, I've thought about. I was going to make an attempt this year, but the attempt I started wasn't panning out. Um, but trying to do tanning the cape
Yeah.
and maybe do like a rug or something. I'm not even sure what I would do with it. I just want to see if I can accomplish it.
Right. I love that type of stuff using everything from the animal. I would love to learn how to do that.
Hmm.
I've always thought it was like as a kid I was the Cowboys and Indian kid. I was you'd find me in the backyard with my buck skins and my fake black powder gun with my coonskin hat, and just to be able to turn the hide into something that you could wear, or make a rug or whatever, always interests me.
Yeah. Yeah,
So yeah.
it's definitely something that I at least would like to have the skill,
Hmm.
especially if like the big one happens, and being able to just put things together that because you don't have access to stores and stuff anymore, and in that
Right.
kind of scenario.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm always thinking about that kind of stuff, the preparing or to be able to survive off the land. It's definitely a trade or tool of the trade that we all may need someday.
Yeah. Hopefully not anytime soon, but
Nope. Yeah. I
better
hope.
to have it.
Yeah, for sure. That's why, with my son, I'm trying, instill values in him, that the older I've got, I've learned, you can't control what they do on a day-to-day basis. Uh, they're not going to be who you want them to be, but you can create that foundation through God and family and work ethic and moral value, uh, to hopefully go on someday and be good humans. You give them the tools that they need to. It sounds maybe a little cheesy, but to succeed. Um, that's for me. It's I tell him every day, like, you're. I know I'm hard on you. I know that you probably think I'm a jerk sometimes, but it's all of this is to make you a better person. That it took me 42 years to realize that the key to life is to be a good human, and just to wake up every day and work hard and just always do the right thing. That's that's it. I do the right thing when nobody's looking. That's that. If you can figure that out, um, I think that you're going to be okay. And us as parents and us as godly men, I feel like it's our duty to try to create that in our children, because it's a dying art. It's like hunting and fishing. The numbers are down. It shows that uh, the numbers are decreasing. They're not increasing. So that's why I'm always trying to get him to understand that the value of hard work, that it's going to pay off. It may not. He's almost a black belt in Taekwondo right now. He's one belt away from that, and he's kind of slacked off a little on working towards that. And I'm constantly on him. You got to earn this, and I think that he's slowly learning that maybe dad's onto something, that he sees that through hard work and just trying to do right by your family and God, that it's all going to work out someday. And everything will be all right.
Yeah. How are your kids' relationship with God?
Good. I mean, we pray every night. We try to go to church every Sunday. It's amazing to sit and watch the power of God in your children.
Yeah.
Whether it be on church on Sunday or driving down the road, to watch. That's probably on a godly aspect of things, the most memorizing thing or magical thing for me is to sit and watch him take hold. I can remember we were um, we were I think we were at a funeral, and the Holy Spirit took a hold of my son, and it was, you could just see it in his eyes. He was trying to figure out what was going on, and he was crying, and he was praying, and you sit back and you see something like that, and if that doesn't make you believe, then I don't know what would. So yes, I guess to answer your questions, but I try to, both of my children, if I forget to pray before bedtime, my little girls, she's real quick to say, "Hey, you forgot to say our prayers." So it's, you know to we found a good church that we like that really focuses on the youth ministry side of it. And I think as young parents with young children, if trying to find a church, um, try to find something that really works hard on teaching God to your children. I think that's amazing.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, that was pretty much all my questions. Did you have anything that you were hoping to talk about?
Hunting, I am obsessed 365 days a year, man. I think about it. I'm scouting. I've got target deer. We didn't really get into it, but I was kind of a little bit nervous. Like you're trying to think of how to respond. But now that we're just sitting here talking, it's hunting and fishing that's literally all I think about. I mean, I love I do stuff with my kids and all that, but I'm scouting 365 days a year, whether I'm online doing OnX or, finding new places. I got on where I killed this deer here. That's just probably a 110-inch 8-pointer, but it was just a buddy of mine bought this little 14-acre tract to like as an investment. It's in the middle of ag. It's 5 minutes from my house. It's in the city limits. But there were deer on it, and I didn't have a place to hunt. And I was like, hey, would you care if I went out and scouted your place? He said, buddy, have at it. He said, we don't even use it. They're going to eventually put 75 interchange through there. We just bought it as an investment. So I went out there, and this was before cell cams were really popular. And I knew deer were there. I was on, found deer sign and tracks and big tracks. And I ended up killing that deer like second to last day of the season. Well, then that was before COVID. COVID happened, and they do camping like RVs and pull behinds and all that. So they turned this little area into like a little RV park for during COVID. They would just go there and hang out. So it pushed the deer out.
Yeah.
So it's been, 3, 4, 5 years since COVID. I just stopped hunting and I found another place. And this year, this big buck, Big Daddy that we've been after, he always, every year after the rut, he's gone. So after that, after the rut, and after I hunted in Kentucky, rifle season and was on some big deer, but I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go down here and put a camera out real quick. And I did, and I didn't have nothing. There wasn't a deer on there for like 3 weeks. And then all of a sudden, there was a giant, like a mega giant. And he was it's a bachelor group of bucks, but I'm close. I'm real close. I got to get a north wind, and I already got a stand set right on the bedding, in the bedding. If I can get a north wind, I'll hopefully go in and kill him. But it's been south winds for like the last 2 weeks in Ohio. So where they come from, it's the area they're bedding is if anything but a north wind is going to blow right into them. So We'll see. Fingers crossed.
You can't come in the backside of that either?
No, because there's just really no way to be able to hunt it. Because the way they cut the fence, the property line to where they come from, you couldn't hunt the opposite side of it.
No way to enter, basically.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever read Steve Rinaldi's Buffalo book? He basically gets a buffalo tag for Alaska, but then finds out there's this weird stipulation that you can't cross Native American land. And he's like, that's literally like, there's like 3 tribes before he can actually even get to where it is he's been allowed to hunt. And the only way to get there is to go upriver, and it's pretty treacherous.
Yeah.
So his brother knew a guy that was like a professional rafter. So he ends up bringing him up and drops him off. And he's basically like, hey, if anybody asks how you got here, you just have to convince them you came upriver.
Oh my gosh. Ha! How cool is that? Man, I just watched a thing. It was Matthews put it out. Did you see that? Where the guy he's after this world-class elk, and this land, it's public land, but it's landlocked in between private. So he gets one of these like little, it isn't even a plane. It's just like a motorized propeller with
Hmm.
wings. And he learns how to fly, and he flies into this place because the surrounding properties won't let him access. And he goes in and he ends up killing this world class elk. And has to pack it out like from this airplane. And I'm sure that they had to get cameras and all that stuff in there somehow. But I mean, it just goes to show you. That's why I like that the water access on things. I'm just dabbling into that, but there's so many areas that one, nobody's going to want to get into because they're going to have to walk 4 or 5 miles, or two, you come in the backside of these places via water. The deer, I mean, they're not used to that. So
Yeah.
there's a lot to it. Those guys that I was talking to you about, the Christopher Leopard dude, um, from the Mobile Hunter Expo, him and some of his buddies, man, they're killers, and that's what they do. They'll go in and come in the backside of these places and just you know sneak attack. So
Yeah.
uh, that's I've enjoyed that part of it more. Just the whole adventure of there ain't nothing better than a crisp fall morning, before as the daylight's coming and you're watching the heat and the steam and the thermals come up out of that river, and you're just paddling and everything's quiet, and it's just, if that ain't God, I don't know what is, brother.
Oh yeah. No, I
Put
agree with that
put
100%.
that in there.
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna ask, what kind of paddle are you, just like a single, or do you use like a double kayak paddle?
Yeah, so my kayak, I'll send you some pictures. It's a 12-foot new canoe unlimited. The one I originally got was the Ascend 12T from Bass. That's like, I think I had like $600 in that thing, and it worked fine. Like I've seen guys paddle deer out. It's super top heavy. Like you got to
Right.
worry about tipping. But yeah, I just use I forget the name of the manufacturer of the oar or the paddle, but it's a double. Yeah. So, and what I do is I'm constantly changing how I set everything up on it. But right now I've just got the small little 30 trolling motor with an extender, and then I got a lithium ion battery that it weighs under 20 pounds. Um, if I know I have to go back up river, I'll bring that. There's the weight is the biggest factor. Um, but like that trip that I did that I told you about, where we went 6 miles, that 6, 7 miles down, and then another 5 or 6 farther down, we paddled that whole thing because it was all down. You were paddling downstream,
Yeah.
so it wasn't bad at all.
That
And
makes
that was
sense.
just we were packing in our tents and our sleeping bags and our food and everything. So a trolling motor and battery just wasn't it didn't make sense for that trip. But they make them on those new canoes, like foot steering. They got the cables are all ran, like you run them inside the kayak, and uh, if it detects that you hit a rock or something, it automatically pulls the propeller up. But you can have 7, 8, $9,000 in a boat. I paid, it was $1,800 for just the kayak on that new canoe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they're not cheap.
The one I'm looking at from Cabela's, I think, because I have their club membership. I think it's like 6 or 700.
Is it a canoe or a kayak?
It's a canoe,
Oh, okay, okay, yeah,
so more access. And I wanted to go something like when I was looking into kayaks, I was looking into tandem if I was going to
right,
do kayak because I want to be able to bring my son with me.
yeah,
The canoe I can fit up to 3 people, so it just seemed more family friendly to
for
do it that
sure.
way.
Yeah,
I guess the
yeah.
question is, would it survive down a river?
I think it would. I mean,
You think so?
for me, it was more packability on something light that I can drag it
Yeah.
if I have to.
Right.
The one I have now is you can run. It's a 650-pound weight rating. I actually ended up buying another seat for it, so you can run tandem. Um, but if you're looking for something all around to where you can get your family in and you don't have to worry about it tipping, definitely I would say a canoe. And like you said, they've got some of them that are the square. Uh, what is that? The hull or whatever I think they call it. But you
On the
can,
back, you mean?
yeah, yeah. Some of them that,
Yeah, the ones that I can rent are like that. This one isn't. So it just comes to a point on both sides.
yeah,
But there's that bar you can buy where you stick it on the back
right.
and it clamps on, and then it has the paddle on the back that you can put the trolling motor on it.
Yep, yep. I ended up modifying the kayak that I bought from Bass Pro, and I bought it was a winch mount for a four wheeler from Harbor Freight,
Hmm.
and I anchored it into the back of it because the Ascend kayaks don't have the flat on the back. So I ended up taking that and mounting it to the back of it, and then taking a 2x4 and putting lag bolts in it enough to where I could get, it's probably a 2 foot section. And I just took my trolling motor and mounted it to that. It
Yeah.
wasn't real sturdy, but it worked, it worked for that. But I think if with the Cabela's club card too, you get another, it's like a 10 or 15% off, and you get like a 12. That's how I bought mine. It was like 12 months, same as cash too.
Right. That's
So
actually not a bad idea with finances and stuff.
yeah, that's what I had to do. That was the only way I was able to do it is I had, I forget, I think it was 12 months to pay it off. And that's what I did, so it worked. I still have it.
Yeah. I was also
So
thinking, what was one of the things I liked about the kayak system is all the bungee cords and stuff where you can keep everything tied in. So I
yeah.
thought about doing kind of my own makeshift one, almost like with cleats on the side,
Uh,
with the bungee fixed on, like, let's say the right side, and then I have the ability to pack it in, and then I could pull that over like a netting over to the cleats on the other side so that everything's just held in.
yep. Yeah. Yeah. That was the big thing for me on that trip was, you try to pack light. Well, then you think, what if, and you end up with all this extra stuff that you don't use. Well, you trial and error, you definitely find out what you do and don't need, and also what you can pack. I got one of those big wet bags from Amazon, it's like a 70-liter wet bag, and I was able to pack a bunch of stuff in. And then, like you said, with the nets, I just put, in the back. I'll send you pictures of it. You just kind of net it all in, and
Yeah.
you pack it on top of each other, and it made for a really cool experience.
You know what's funny about that is when I got into hunting, I had this giant camping backpack that I put everything in. And this is back in California. I mostly did public land,
Hmm.
hiking into the mountains and stuff. So I even had like rolls of toilet paper and a shovel just in case.
Yeah.
And so at some point I was like, this thing just weighs way too much to be hiking up and down these hills all the time. So eventually I switched to kind of like the back fanny pack one.
Right.
And that's what I still use today. And then when I moved to North Carolina, I got invited by the guy that I buy my meat from to hunt the woods on the backside of his ranch. So I just went to his tree stand over and over again, and I was like, I don't need this in there, I don't need that in there. So I'm taking all this stuff. There's hardly anything in there now. But
Uh-huh.
now that I'm looking at going to public, back to public this next year, I'm gonna have to put all that stuff back in.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for me, like the mobile thing, like when I first started getting into it, it was like I was packing for a Western elk hunt. And I'm like,
Yeah.
this kind of defeats the whole purpose of being mobile and being, lightweight. And I've just continually find to all summer I'd pack my pack, I'd go and just practice ascending and descending the tree and what I needed and didn't need. And uh, even now, after almost 50 sits, I'm still fine tuning it. But that's what I loved about saddle hunting, especially on public. This is the first year that I really hit public hard. When I hunted in Kentucky, there's a WMA. Um, it's hundreds of thousands of acres that actually was the old coal mining uh, where my family coal mined, that they had a flood. All the ponds that they made for strip mining to take the runoff gave way and flooded this community and killed a bunch of people.
Mm.
So the state of Kentucky bought all of this land as green space and turned it into a WMA. So tell you that story to tell you this story, but to be able to go in and pack so light with the saddles, you wear your saddle in, and then that one stick I was telling you about, that's all you really need. You know that and some and 40 feet of rope, and you can hunt in any tree. You know, the old climber, you had to have a straight no limbed tree to get up in. But
Right.
this, I mean, I've hunted in cedars that were the size of baseballs, diameter.
Yeah.
I've hunted in, it's just it's a super cool uh way of hunting, and it's a tool in a toolbox. Uh it's definitely not for everybody. For me, it was just the comfort of learning, or not basically relearning how to use ropes and feeling comfortable to trust your equipment. But if you're looking to get back into public land hunting, I would definitely check that out.
The idea of going to other places definitely seems like I have more opportunity if I'm not rifle hunting, which is a
Yeah.
big reason why I'm switching to bow. Um, and the public land that I want to go to, the rifle season there doesn't even start until halfway through the rut. So uh, if I bow hunt, I can not only start hunting earlier than I already can, where I currently am, but I also have halfway through the rut before I'm even concerned about someone showing up with a rifle,
Yeah.
assuming they're hunting legally.
Yep.
Um, so just for safety reasons, it seems like a great motivator to get into that.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was for me, the area that I hunted that was public, the backside of this area where we're after this big deer. I was there 2 and 3 times a week, every like almost throughout the entire summer, and I never once saw one person. And I had cameras in a couple different areas that you really, really would have had to look hard to find these cameras. Like they were high in the tree and they were covered with limbs and I there was out of the whole season I had one person on one of those cameras, and I'm pretty sure he wasn't even a hunter. And
Yeah.
then even hunting it through early season, the rut, youth season, I didn't hunt it a ton. I was more intimidated by the thought of hunting public land and the thought of someone being there and messing up their hunt or them messing my hunt up. So there were times that I should have probably made the track, made the kayak in or the walk in, but I was almost intimidated by the thought of running into somebody. So I would go back and hunt Old Faithful, the private, and uh but I never once saw anybody. Nobody ever hunted that area at the same time I did. I know there were people back there hunting because I found a stand, I found a gut pile. But I had a trail camera on a scrape, like a community scrape from like early June through the day before our opening day of slug season, rifle season. I went in and took my cameras down because if there was ever a time that I was going to have people in there, it would have been then. So I just went in and I lock them and everything. I don't think anybody would have messed with them, but I just went in and pulled them. But um, for me, that's to be able to go in mobile like that. I never hunted the same tree twice. I was moving and trying to bounce around, but uh, the lightweight part of it was for me, that was key.
Yeah.
I was as part of when I graduated high school, I tried to get my dad to pay like as a graduation present to go out to Texas. I always thought that'd be cool. Go out and hunt some Texas deer, but uh, there's definitely some giants out there.
Yeah. There's one of my on my bucket list is a nilgai in Texas.
Yeah.
I think they're in the southern portion. And um, they're technically wild, but they're all located on private land, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you have to pay something like $2,500 to go hunt one. But I guess it's something like they have really good eyesight at distance. And if they sense you coming like 100, 200, 300 yards away, depending on where you're coming from, they're just gone.
Oh, wow.
And I guess some people even have to try to shoot them moving.
Yeah.
So that's one of those, like, get good with your rifle and scope at the range, because you're not going to get close enough to do anything else.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, I hunted Kentucky this year, and I've hunted, some rolling hills. I wouldn't call them mountains, but hunting. And I was just looking up the Jeremy Carnes, the episode you just released.
Yeah.
The Seek One or One, whatever the Seek is.
Seek First Outdoors.
Seek First, yes. Listening to what he was saying about hunting mountain deer, that is unlike anything I've ever done. Because of the thermals, you're hunting a spot and deer are blowing at you above you and below you because your thermals are rising and falling. That for me this year it was a huge learning curve. Like I got on deer, and some nice deer, but I just couldn't get that whole thermal rise and fall figured out, specifically to where the area that I was at. That was, I've been hunting a long time and never really experienced that. So it was definitely a learning experience.
Yeah, that's it was fascinating to hear how involved it all gets. And I mean, it's almost like, I'm sure people that are involved with hunting just have this very simplified, like, oh, you go out and shoot and come home kind of thing with your dead animal. How dare you, or whatever it is they think.
Right.
But it's almost like there's like you have to have like a degree in certain types of elemental science and things like that, just to understand aspects like the thermals, like you were saying.
Yeah.
It's just crazy how much
knowledge. Yeah. It's definitely in the world of podcasts and social media platforms, and there's so much information out there now that it can almost it overwhelms you. Like that's the thing. Like as I've filmed this year and tried to get footage and content, the thing that that's been hardest for me is I've overcomplicated it a lot. I'm like, I'm talking to the camera I'm overthinking this. Like the mobile thing. Like there was one morning I was in 5 different trees in one morning for a morning sit because I kept just overanalyzing it. So there's, like you said, the physics, the science behind it. We have, and myself included, I've almost made it too difficult. I've overcomplicated it too much rather than, you just go into a spot and you hunt it. You want to play the wind. You're never going to beat a deer's nose, no matter how much stuff you buy over the counter. What it comes down to is you go in and you find the sign, you set up on the sign, you hunt the wind, you play the thermals, you play the wind. I don't really know where I was going with that. You were talking just about the science and stuff, but like I feel like there's so much information out there now that we just overcomplicate it, and lose sight on what it's about.
So like when I first got involved with the carpet cleaning industry, I was mostly doing it to kind of help me transition, because I had a little bit of a falling out when I worked in Hollywood. Got involved in AV, and then when I got married to my wife, we had opposite hours. So I was like, I want to try to figure out how to make the film thing work again. So can I come work for you, Dad? Basically. And then it just evolved from learning. It wasn't just about like stroke back and forth. Now the carpet's wet, but it's clean kind of thing. And that's all I ever knew about it. To the fact that there's like a whole science behind it. And like, just as an example, like if you mix pneumonia with hydrogen peroxide, it creates a certain type of substance that's only active for 15 minutes, which will cause wine to become transparent. And that's how you remove wine from carpet. After 15 minutes, it turns into water, which is why then you can extract it. So there's just things like that where I've come to a point where I'll walk into a house and I know that this spot's a certain thing. And it's not like I'm going to try to throw a bunch of random chemicals at it. I'm going to do the thing I know it's going to work. If that doesn't work, I'm not going to bother with anything else because that's not coming out.
Right.
It's just the experience you have with the accumulated knowledge. And I assume the same thing will happen to you with like thermals. Eventually it'll just be one of those, like, I know what to do here without it really thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. You are, I mean, you're spot on. It's, you try to become a student. For me, at least I try to become a student of anything I do. And there's just, you hear thermal hubs and this and that and experience, that's like with life, is you gotta experience some things to get it figured out. So yeah, mountain hunting in a nutshell, that was a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I almost wonder if it makes sense, and this could just be a different approach for all I know, to kind of do ground hunting as a base. And then when you see certain signs, you're like, I need to be up in this tree.
Yeah.
And then if you know that that's going to work down, the deer's going to show up.
Right.
I'd probably say it's still probably a 50% chance because you're relying on something's behavior.
Yep. Exactly. That's for milk. Like I started using milkweed this year to watch that, like you can, I remember a morning in Kentucky, early season, like I dropped some milkweed and it was still really, really early. So the thermals were still pulling down. So you can watch the milkweed and it's going in this drainage ditch and it was like 20 minutes later, you could feel the thermal change, and that same piece of milkweed is now going up the mountain. It's going up above me now. But then you take your wind checker, and the wind is, your wind is out of the west, but the thermals are pulling, north.
Yeah.
So like you said, it's you ground hunt. You talk to guys that talk about, that certain topographical features that they will key in on, like with their online mappings due to a thermal pull or a thermal change. And that's where they focus on. And I wonder, like you said, do they ground hunt their way in and drop that milkweed to see that? And then once that pull or that change happens, then they can set up. And I've listened to guys on podcasts that will hunt low on certain topographical features or high in others because of that, where once you get up above that, you're essentially, your thermals are going over that deer's back. There's so much, the science behind it that's kind of what fascinates me, but it definitely, it kicked my hind end this year. I just couldn't, I mean, I had a lot of nice deer on camera, but I couldn't close the deal because of thermals. Like I said, I had them blowing at me above me and below me. So
yeah,
that's something, it's pretty flat in North Carolina, isn't it?
Not as flat as I expected. I thought it was going to be like, I guess everything, let's say east of, I guess like the Arizona area, just in my head growing up, I assumed it was going to be fairly flat, and it's really not. There's a lot of hills. The place I was previously hunting, the private land, that was fairly flat. I did notice, and I don't know if it has anything to do with there being a lake. I don't know. I'd say 70 yards from the stand in front of me. But there was a day that was pretty cold, and when I got down, it was like stepping into like an ultra freezer. And I was like, that's interesting. The stand being up in the air with the wind and stuff passing me was warmer than just being on ground level.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a weird day.
There you go, man. That's the science behind it.
Yeah. Um, what was it going with that? Oh,
Being
I'd
flat.
be curious. Yeah, I was gonna say I'd be curious if that's something that like pilots would easily pick up on. If pilots are able to read that and be effective hunters.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, man. There's there's a lot. There's some of these guys like you hear talk that they've got it perfected. They're doing their online scouting. They're picking their places due to, terrain features or, uh, you know, uh, oh, I'm getting tired now. The like the Oh my gosh, I don't know. The like trees, like cut throughs, like a change in your ag or your foliage or whatever. Anyway, I don't know. But they've got that all. There's a science behind it. That's where they're finding, your change and color from your different trees, and they've they've got that all down to a science. So
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. And some of that could just be like betting signs.
yeah,
You have I'm blanking on the term. There's an art. I was doing some research for an article on different types of bedding places, but basically, like you have the ones where it's mostly just like evergreens, like
right.
your different pines and things like that. Um, which if it's like super windy or you're dealing with rain or snow or something like that, that's just a comfortable place to be because year round it's gonna be covered and protected, and it's also
Mhm.
especially for like if I'm airborne or if you go to the thicker areas from ground predators. Um, so if you follow that, you could at least see kind of these would be the areas, and then you have like your shelves and things like that. So you could probably just look at a map, especially if you had a not just like topographical, but like I can't remember the word, but where you see kind of everything live, so you know
Yeah,
what kind of brush and stuff is in, excuse
right.
me, in different places. You probably could draw a little map of like this is the route that they probably most likely would be on.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen guys where like they use that, and I confirmed it with that lottery hunt that I was telling you about earlier. There was a section that was, it was all cedars and pines, and you hear about, a deer are line animals where they'll follow that line that, you know, from one terrain feature. That's terrain features, one terrain feature to another, and there was so much more sign in those specific areas, and that's what we tried to. Once it took us a few days, several days to key in on it, but once we did, and we were able to find, those changes in colors on those maps, uh, and that's the deer. The deer were just, it was like a runway.
Right.
Looked like an interstate through there, and that's what they. And you watch them. I would watch them from, from through my binoculars. eh, The features that they would follow, the south facing slopes, because of the more direct, excuse me, the direct sunlight, during the colder months, and it was definitely interesting.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, well, man, I'm uh I'm starting to mumble and talk in circles. I've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed, honestly, this last part tremendously. But I think what you're doing is amazing. When I I think we kind of, I don't know if we found each other, but I saw something that you had posted, and started researching what you do. And it's, you're an amazing, I don't know you personally, but I think, what you're doing is amazing. I think that you're going to touch lives. You're going to make, a difference. You've made a difference in my life, just the amount of time that I've talked to you, and watching some of your prior podcasts, to be able to hear, other men or women for that matter, that love the outdoors, that try to put God first, and hear their stories. It gives us, in a world full of hate and non-believers, it gives us all hope. So
Yeah.
I would say, keep up what you're doing, because it's really amazing. So
Thank you. That really means a lot.
yeah, well, you're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on.
Definitely, man. So, what is this like? How does this, as far as moving forward, do you?
You just hit the end button. No,
Okay.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Right? Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in on greatoutdoorspodcast.com. And if you happen to be listening or watching on one of our social media platforms, you should check out greatoutdoorspodcast.com for some cool merch like this hat or this awesome coffee cup for camping. And this awesome sweater as well, which features our classic Genesis 27.3. Take your quiver and your bow and go hunt me some venison. Your wife's gonna love the way you look in this. Right, honey?
Mm-hmm.
greatoutdoorspodcast.com.
Why?